Okay, so like the first time I heard about Salty's Lighthouse was on Discord. My friend Shane on Discord, he was like, hey, fun fact, there was an American version of Tugs that was actually not very good because they modernized it because the show took place in the 90s and they wanted to modernize the Tug segments from the 1920s to like the modern day, so they made like hip-hop music and stuff. And like they changed like Sunshine's gender to be female, and they made her 10 Cents' little sister, and it was really weird. And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, this show looks actually a little interesting. Maybe I want to watch it at some point. And so then Shane was like, no, don't watch it. You're going to lose IQ if you do that. But I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If it's that bad, I probably won't. But then, like a week later, after I finished Tugs, I decided, you know what? Let's, just out of curiosity, let's watch Salty's Lighthouse. So I pulled the series up on YouTube because all the episodes are available on YouTube. And then I sat down, I pulled out a Google Doc so I could like write down my thoughts on, just like almost like a live posting kind of thing, except it was just all in a Google Doc. And oh my god, I had so much to say about this show. There's like okay, so I did the same thing for Tugs back when I first watched it. Like I went in like Discord DMs and I just typed up like my thoughts on it as I was watching each episode. And they were like kind of short. I think the longest, I like to call them write-ups. I think the longest write-up I did for Tugs was on Upriver. That was like a whole paragraph. But I think I made like a good percentage of the ones on Salty's much, much longer because it just had so much to say about it. This show, I physically despise Salty's Lighthouse. Not the show itself, but just like the Tug segments that came out of it. Because it's hard to not compare it to Tugs. But if you don't, it's a decent enough kids show. It's a decent enough segment of the kids show. But my dog is here. Hello, Wyatt. But comparing it to the original show, the Salty's version of Tugs is just so, I don't know, out of place, I guess? Because, again, like I said in this video, like, there's switched genders. There's just so much. There's switched names, switched personalities. There's, like, everything just feels really off. And it just doesn't feel right. And the dialogue is kind of clunky. Like, okay, so, real thing. The first episode of Salty's, the Tug segment in that one, is based on High Winds, and it's mainly about Zebedee, for one, and it just uses a lot of footage from High Winds. And it's a different story, though, and the moral of the story is, like, if you need help, ask for it, because Zebedee was like, I'm a tough guy, I don't need help from anybody. That was basically what he was throughout that segment. But here's the thing about Zebedee's voice. In Tugs, his voice is, like, kind of low-pitched, it's kind of raspy. I'd say maybe a little bit either lower pitch, I forget, lower pitched or higher pitched than Zach's. I think it's lower pitched than Zach's. But it's like, you can tell that he's just like, got this like kind of deep voice. In Salty's, it's high-pitched Brooklyn accent. And like, no joke, the first time I heard it, I almost cried. I almost cried the first time I heard that voice because it was just so surreal to me. There are so many things in this show that just gave me like such a visceral reaction. Either I almost cried, or no joke, I had to take like breaks every 10 seconds while I was watching this show. Every 10 seconds I had to take breaks for like 10 minutes just to let everything that I'd just seen sit with me. Another good example was in Grampus's song when I think I mentioned this in the video. When the Z guys are like performing their own rendition of Grampus's little song, and it's like a hip-hop rendition. I don't think I mentioned what it exactly was. It was like a hip-hop rap rendition of the song, and I had to pause the video and just like go into another room and just freak out over why was this in the show? Did they know the show took place in the 1920s? Because I don't think they did. They also made a million claims that, like, the characters ran on oil, when that's not true. I don't think oil-powered boats weren't a thing for a while. They ran on steam. They all ran on steam in the show. In fact, fun fact, for Season 2 of Tugs, which was never made, but in Season 2 of Tugs, there would have been a boat character that ran on diesel that would have been, like, seen as, like, the enemy to all the steam-powered boats. And that's interesting. But back to Salty's, that doesn't make sense in the context of the actual show, because you can see clearly all the boats run on steam, but they make claims like, oh, you blew a fuse, like a gas fuse or whatever. And I was just like, no, you all run on steam. I don't know, it's just, and there's so many, like, dumb edits, and just, I pointed out, I think, almost every single time that Sunshine Switch paint jobs, that can't be helped, obviously, because, like, just depending on the clips that they use, but I still just pointed it out every time, because it's just such a noticeable change, and just goes to show you, like, just how weird and kind of clunky the editing could be at times. I don't know. The show took so much out of me. I actually felt my lifespan shortening while I was watching this show. Like, I think I'm gonna die at 40 because of Salty's Lighthouse. So thank you, Salty's Lighthouse. I'm going to die at 40.